Item 442. Metal for structures. 1. Description. Provide structural steel, high-strength bolts, forgings, steel castings, iron castings, wrought iron, steel pipe and tubing, aluminum castings and tubing, or other metals used in structures, except reinforcing steel and metal culvert pipe. 2. Materials. Furnish mill test reports, MTRs, supplemental test documentation, and certifications required by this and other pertinent items. 2.1 Structural steel. The engineer may sample and test steel in accordance with ASTM A370. 2.1.1 Bridge structures. Provide the grade of ASTM A709 steel shown on the plans. Grade 50W, 50s, or HPS 50W may be substituted for grade 50 at no additional cost to the department. Use Zone 1 if no OSHTO temperature zone is shown on the plans. 2.1.2 Non-bridge structures. 2.1.2.1 Steel classifications. Provide the types and grades of steel listed in this section unless otherwise shown on the plans. 2.1.2.1.1 Carbon steel. Meet ASTM A36. 2.1.2.1.2 Low alloy steel. Meet the requirements of one of the following standards. ASTM A529 grade 50. ASTM A572 grade 50 or 55. ASTM A588. ASTM A709 grade 50, 50s, 50W, or HPS 50W, or ASTM A992. Specify ASTM A6 supplemental requirement S18, maximum tensile strength, for material used for sign, signal, and luminaire supports. 2.1.2.2 Impact testing. Tension members and components of the following structure types, if more than 1/2 inches thick. Other members designated on the plans must meet the Charpy V notch, CVN, requirements of Table 1. Base plates for roadway illumination assemblies, traffic signal pole assemblies, high mast illumination poles, camera poles, and overhead sign supports. Pole mounting plates, arm mounting plates, and clamp-on plates for traffic signal pole assemblies. Arm stiffeners, pole gussets, and stiffeners for traffic signal pole long mast arm assemblies, 50 feet to 65 feet. Pole shafts, ground sleeves, and handhole frames for high mast illumination poles. W columns, tower pipes, multiple-sided shafts, tower pipe, and multiple-sided shaft connection plates, cord angles, cord splice plates or angles, and truss-bearing angles for truss-type overhead sign supports, and pipe posts, pipe arms, post and arm flange plates, and handhole frames for monotube overhead sign supports. Table 1. CVN requirements for non-bridge steel. Material thickness minimum CVN toughness. ASTM A36, A53, A242, A500, A501, A709 GR36, any other steel with minimum specified yield point below 40 ksi up to 4 inches 15 feet-pounds at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. ASTM A572,1 A588,1 A633,1 any other steel with minimum specified yield point between 40 and 65 ksi, inclusive up to 2 inches 15 feet-pounds at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Over 2 inches to 4 inches, mechanically fastened 15 feet-pounds at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Over 2 inches to 4 inches, welded 20 feet-pounds at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Any steel with minimum specified yield point over 65 ksi and under 90 ksi 2 up to 2.5 inches 20 feet-pounds at 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Over 2.5 inches to 4 inches, mechanically fastened 20 feet-pounds at 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Over 2.5 inches to 4 inches, welded 25 feet-pounds at 50 degrees Fahrenheit. 1. Reduce the testing temperature by 15 degrees Fahrenheit for each 10 ksi increment or fraction thereof above 65 ksi if the yield point of the material given on the MTR exceeds 65 ksi. To reduce the testing temperature by 15 degrees Fahrenheit for each 10 ksi increment or fraction thereof above 85 ksi if the yield point of the material given on the MTR exceeds 85 ksi. Use the h frequency of testing for material with minimum specified yield point up to 50 ksi. Use the p frequency of testing for material with minimum specified yield point over 50 ksi. Ensure steel is sampled and tested in accordance with ASTM A673. 2.1.3 Other components. 2.1.3.1 Miscellaneous bridge components. Provide steel that meets ASTM A36, A709 grade 36, or A500 grade B for members such as steel bearing components not bid under other items, steel diaphragms for use with concrete bridges and armor and finger joints, unless otherwise shown on the plans. 2.1.3.2 Shear connectors and anchors. Provide cold drawn bars for stud shear connectors, slab anchors, and anchors on armor and finger joints that meet the requirements of ASTM A108, grade 1010, 1015, 1018, or 1020, either semi-killed or killed, and have the tensile properties given in Table 2 after drawing or finishing. Determine tensile properties in accordance with ASTM A370. Table 2. Minimum tensile properties for bar stock. Tensile strength is 60 ksi. Yield strength is 50 ksi. Elongation is 20%, 2 inches. Reduction of area is 0.5. Provide certification from the manufacturer that the studs or anchors as delivered have the required material properties. 2.1.3.3 Fasteners. Provide high-strength bolts that meet ASTM A325 or A490 as shown on the plans. The department may sample high-strength bolts, nuts, and washers for structural connections in accordance with Text 719I. Follow the requirements of Item 447, Structural Bolting, for tests, test reports, and supplemental requirements for high-strength bolts, nuts, and washers. Use bolts that meet ASTM A307 and nuts that meet ASTM A563 when ASTM A325 or A490 bolts are not shown on the plans. 2.1.3.4 Slip-resistant deck plates. Furnish steel for deck plates that meets ASTM A786 and one of A242, A588, or A709 GR50W. State the type and trade name of material to be used on the shop drawings. 2.1.3.5 Rail posts. Provide material for rail posts that meets ASTM A36 or ASTM A709 grade 36 unless otherwise shown on the plans. 2.2 Steel forgings. Provide steel forgings for pins, rollers, trunnions, or other forged parts that meet ASTM A668, Class C, D, F, or G, as shown on the plans. For pins 4 inches or smaller in diameter for non-railroad structures, material that meets ASTM A108, grades 1016 to 1030, with a minimum yield strength of 36 ksi, may be used instead. 2.3 Steel castings. Provide steel castings that meet ASTM A27, grade 7036. 2.4 Iron castings. Provide iron castings that are true to pattern in form and dimensions, free from pouring faults, sponginess, cracks, blowholes, and other defects in positions affecting their strength and value for the service intended, and meet the standards shown in Table 3. Table 3. Standards for iron castings. See table in specifications. 2.5 Steel tubing. Provide steel tubing that meets ASTM A500, grade B unless otherwise shown on the plans. Tubing that meets API standard 5L, grade X52 may be used if produced by a mill listed in the standard API specifications as authorized to produce pipe with the API monogram. Hydrostatic tests are not required for API 5L steel, and instead of an MTR, the manufacturer may furnish a certificate for each lot or shipment certifying the tubing meets the requirements of this section. 2.6 Pipe rail. Pipe includes special extruded and bent shapes. Provide pipe that is rolled, extruded, or cold pressed from a round pipe or flat plate, and of the section shown on the plans. Ensure the design of the cold press and dies results in a pipe of uniform section free from die marks. Cut the pipe to the lengths required once it has been formed to the required section. Make the end cuts and notches at the angles to the axis of the pipe required to produce vertical end faces and plumb posts when required by the plans. Provide a neat and workmanlike finish when cutting and notching pipe. 2.7 Aluminum. Provide aluminum materials that meet the standards shown in Table 4 unless otherwise shown on the plans. Table 4. Aluminum Standards. See table in specifications. When testing is required, cut test specimens from castings from the lower 14 inches of the tension flange, but not at the junction of the rib or base. Flatten the curved surfaces before machining. Provide standard test specimens in conformance with ASTM E8. 3. Construction. 3.1 Fabrication, erection, and painting. Fabricate, weld, and erect structural metal in accordance with Item 441, steel structures, Item 447, structural bolting, Item 448, structural field welding, and the applicable AWS welding code. Paint in accordance with Item 446, field cleaning and painting steel. Aluminum or galvanized steel members do not require painting unless otherwise shown on the plans. 3.2 Galvanizing. Galvanize fabricated steel items, steel castings, bolts, nuts, screws, washers, and other miscellaneous hardware in accordance with Item 445, galvanizing. Galvanizing is not required unless specified. 4. Measurement. This item will be measured by the pound of structural metal furnished and placed in a complete structure not including the weight of erection bolts, paint, or weld metal. This is a plan's quantity measurement item. The quantity to be paid is the quantity shown in the proposal unless modified by Article 9.2, Plan's quantity measurement. Additional measurements or calculations will be made if adjustments of quantities are required. The maximum percent variance from the plan's quantity will be as given in Table 5. Table 5. Percent variance. Quantity and variance. Quantity over 1 million pounds has a 0.5% variance. Quantity of 100,000 through 1 million pounds has a 1% variance. Quantity under 100,000 pounds has a 1.5% variance. If the requests for increases in sizes or weights of members are approved, measurement will be made on the sizes or weights shown on the plans. Castings, bearing plates, anchor bolts, drains, deck plates, armor and finger joints, and other metal for which no separate measurement is specified will be included in the total quantity of structural steel. The weights of rolled materials, such as structural shapes and plate, will be computed on the basis of nominal weights and dimensions using measurements shown on the plans. Deductions will not be made for material that is removed for copes, clips, planing, or weld preparation. The weight of castings will be computed from the dimensions shown on the approved shop drawings. Shoes will be measured by the weights shown on the plans. Weight of high-strength fasteners will be based on Table 6. Weight of other metal will be based on Table 7. Splices will be measured as follows. No additional weight will be allowed for weld metal in a welded splice. Where a bolted splice is permitted as an alternate for a welded splice, measurement will be made on the basis of a welded splice. Where a bolted splice is required, the weight of the splice material, bolt heads, washers, and nuts will be measured with no deduction for holes. Table 6. Pay weight for high-strength fasteners, pounds per 100 units. See table in specifications. Table 7. Pay weight for metals. See table in specifications. 5. Payment. The work performed and materials furnished in accordance with this item and measured as provided under measurement will be paid for at the unit price bid for structural steel of the type, rolled beam, plate girder, tub girder, box girder, railroad through girder, railroad deck girder, miscellaneous bridge, miscellaneous non-bridge, specified. This price is full compensation for materials, fabrication, transportation, erection, paint, painting, galvanizing, equipment, tools, labor, and incidentals.